Good evening. I would like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for May 8th, 2024 to order. The time is now 7:03. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C is the roll call of council members, and I'll ask the city clerk, Becky Jensen, to please call the roll.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Correas.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Molinar.
Is excused tonight.
Councilmember Tesoro.
Here.
Councilmember Vanderstoep.
Here.
Thanks, Becky. Item 2, the adoption of tonight's council meeting agenda. Council, a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Navor, second by Richard. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right. So item 3 is community comments. If there's anyone present in council chambers here tonight that would like to address council, please come on up, state your name, your city of residence, and please limit your comments to about 3 to 5 minutes. I will say there's a public hearing tonight for ADU regulations, so if you're here to speak to that item, that'll be a little bit later on the agenda, so I just ask you to wait on that item. Welcome.
Thank you. So my name's Clive Bolton. I live here in Mount Vernon. And my public comment, so I was looking at driving along, I live on East College Way 538, and I've noticed that the junctions, particularly the junction here outside by the police station, and inundations, curves, and by the car washes, the pavement is beat up. It's pretty bad. When I've been looking on Facebook, people often put a comment up there that's not very nice that will draw attention to that. And so I thought I'd try and do a little bit do-it-yourself. I went and looked on the state. They have a website where they have the state routes, because I didn't know if this is a city route or a state route, because it's both East College Way and 538. On the state route, you can send a message about the website, but you can't say, the road is buckled and it needs a repair. And so anyway, since I was here, I thought about this road, and there's one other road which is really beat up, and that's from the new library along 3rd Street to the new jail on Highway 99. For some reason, the right-hand lane, the pavement is shot. It's kind of missing, and it's pretty bad order. So anyways, that was my comment. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any other community comments tonight?
Afternoon, Ed Johnson, live down at President's Suites. I call them downtown Mount Vernon, First and Myrtle. I'm wearing this because I've almost been hit about 10 times trying to cross the crosswalks down there on 2nd Street, Myrtle and Kincaid. People are looking at their cell phones, not everything else but what they should be. And it's very precarious. So something needs to be done, just public safety right then and there. I mean, that's just really bad. First Street at night, we got racers up and down the street. Why? I don't know. But for some reason from I think it's Gates, to Kincaid, they go 0 to 80. And it's just funny because it's only, 3 blocks? Something like that. All right, that said, I want to bring up several items, so cut me off when it's time. The oath that we give here in this country is sacred. I worked with the American Legion and many other disabled vets when Rich was still around. He's now semi-retired. Sundance, I'm talking about. Some of you may know of him. Anyways, I don't take any Boy Scout, Eagle Scout here, all the oaths that we did every day when we did our, I still remember back in the 70s. So that brings back other memories. And one thing that's come to my attention is going to the school. I had a couple of meetings there because I found some window art that's questionable. Why? Because it divides us. It doesn't what's the word? Unify us. And what I mean is, when I go to a foreign country, and by the way, I lived in China with 7 million in my town, I see people trying to diverse, but also engage and share the culture, and that's what this town's about. Cinco de Mayo was awesome. I mean, for what it was funny. Everybody hiding underneath the eaves because it was raining. But the show was tremendous, and I thought it was pretty cool. Even saw the mayor trying to hide in his little Corvette. Good job. Dale didn't see you either, and he goes, "He didn't wave." Just saying. All right, so I took a copy of the allegiance because when we give up our allegiances to other countries, and not that I ever did, but some have, you don't still have direct ties with your old country other than family. No political ties, no things like this. I'm just mentioning this because at the school, in high school, they only had two predominant languages. In China, you do not. You have maybe WC for water closet, which is British for toilet. That's pretty important throughout the city in a little signage. But as far as anything else, no, you don't. So here we have over 20 different ethnic groups over in the high school. That's absolutely wonderful. But there's only two predominant languages. There shouldn't be just two. I say all of them, or none of them. So I've had these meetings trying to bring the culture together. The other problem was migrants. It's not a problem at all. But I remember back in the 60s and 70s, a guy named Chavez and migrant, and I looked it up, and there was considerable violence. So I don't want to see us going in that direction and repeating that part of history, because this country, people, humans, 1600 BC, we repeat histories. And where's the round table? That was a cool idea. The other thing is parking. Having volunteered for various groups, I cannot believe how much of a struggle things are. Parking for the tulip fair, street fair. Couldn't believe it. They didn't have accurate maps or anything, and people are telling people from gates, at the information center, you go down the street, how to get to the tulip fields, you got to cross West Side Bridge. But wait a minute, there's two bridges, so you don't go to Second, the next street, and make a left, because that takes you over the bridge. That's the Riverside. You got to go to Third. Then I realized there's nothing concise that actually shows us 40 years. Okay, this is the best you got. At Main Street, you can't make a left, so you got to go right. In order to know how to go around it, let's see. I don't know if you can see this, but I just drew this. Okay, thanks. You have to go around to the tulip stack and then find the egress that only locals would probably know about. So these are things that shouldn't be today in 2024, but they are. So I started counting all the parking, and I created a preliminary map. I handed it off, and I don't know what I did with it now with my copy, but to the engineering group, city engineering, said, hey, we got to look at this, and I would like the city to use eminent domain for those special events, because there's some bad actors with property that have downtown parking, and I took pictures of several that didn't have anybody in them, or few. If they had 20, 30 spots, they might have had 2 or 3 vehicles during that holiday weekend, and people are just going crazy over parking. With a new structure, maybe that goes away. But if it doesn't, bottom line is this has been going on for 40 years, and that should never have. And that's, again, the parking. What else I want to talk? Oh, come on.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, can I set aside like 2 hours somewhere? And, the coffee was awesome, and I would like to see a lot more of that. Your mayor's coffee, very informative. Thank you.
You said.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kevin Moss. I have lived in Mount Vernon most of my life, and much of that in an older neighborhood near downtown that I love. I like to be able to walk to places like City Hall. Soon, I'll be able to walk to the Mount Vernon Library Commons, which I also look forward to. Mount Vernon is an attractive place, and people want to move here. I'm a small infill builder, so it's especially gratifying to meet people who want to live in the older parts of town, like where I live. Recently, I was approached by a couple from Bellingham who are selling their house, and they want me to build them a house near the fairgrounds, near downtown. Unfortunately, I cannot build a house that will work for them, and the reason for that is found at the intersection of policy and geometry. Our original neighborhoods are made up of smaller building lots, averaging perhaps 5,000 square feet. But these older neighborhoods are near services and amenities. People have the ability to get to their destinations without always driving. Mount Vernon is the only jurisdiction in Skagit County that still requires substantially all new houses to have a two-car garage. But what many buyers want is main floor living space, including the downstairs bedroom. Now we get to the geometry. On a small lot, say 5,000 square feet, it's just not possible to fit both a two-car garage and enough living space to comfortably fit a primary bedroom. In other neighborhoods in Mount Vernon, say Skagit Highlands, people are comfortable with upstairs bedrooms, got a lot of houses with upstairs bedrooms. In other neighborhoods, say Thunderbird, the lots are large and there are two-car garages that fit on there no problem. But if you're in a traditional neighborhood on a smaller lot, the geometry just doesn't work. This couple that wants to move to Mount Vernon, they own one car and they own one motorcycle. They only want one garage stall and they will not buy a house without a ground floor bedroom. They're older, they want to age in place. I currently cannot get a permit for the house they want. In this case, by planning for hypothetical residents with lots of cars, our city's policies are making it harder for actual aspiring residents to actually move here. Our legislature recently passed a bill that will prohibit cities from requiring garages. I urge you, the council, to use your power and to amend our local policies to stop requiring garages so that choice is left to people who want to move here, like this couple I just mentioned. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to talk to you privately more and appreciate your efforts to expand housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm Marion Myers of Mount Vernon Cedar Heights, which contains a storm pond and a biofiltration swale or bioswale and access berm shown on a recorded plat and as-built drawing. I'm addressing claims made by Public Works regarding their reasons for lack of proper maintenance of our bioswale. The city does maintain the storm pond, and for 1 year, from October 2022 until October 2023, Public Works agreed to maintain our bioswale with the help of the Washington Conservation Corps to remove prohibited trees. But it didn't happen. Public Works notified us that they decided to maintain the function of the drainage utility as determined by Public Works officials, saying that our plat's language doesn't apply to their vegetative responsibility, and our HOA is responsible for the vegetation because it's HOA property. The city approved our plat's dedication words of storm pond and drainage easement to City of Mount Vernon, granted to the city to maintain and repair drainage facilities. There is no legal plat language stating a shared vegetation responsibility with the city, and no city attorney or employee has legal authority over our recorded plat document. Today, our bioswale is severely damaged from years of neglect and in need of serious repair. City Councilman Brocksmith walked our bioswale with me, and then on March 28th, he met with city engineers Chris Phillips and Alan Danforth. The following comments were conveyed by Councilman Brocksmith to myself and my husband. The city engineers agreed the swale erosion needs to be addressed. Then they presented 2 documents. The first document presented was the drainage report, Regional Detention Facility for Cedar Heights of October 2005 by professional engineer John Ravnick. Page 14 states that the pond has been sized to treat all runoff from the developed conditions of the entire regional drainage basin. And on April 17th, Mr. Ravnick emailed the city to confirm that the intended function of this drainage course is strictly for conveyance. The city said that since no further pollutant treatment is required, the bioswale doesn't serve as a bioswale filtration facility that requires DOE bioswale maintenance and is just a conveyance swale requiring only a maintenance of water flow. Although the bioswale's pollutant filtration of runoff waters isn't intended, there's no stated violation standard of the DOE for providing unintended pollutant filtration by a bioswale that would change how it's depicted on our plat document, as-built drawing, or how it's maintained. Its intended function is to provide flow control as a constructed grassy bioswale for a 4-inch flow of local stormwater from 16 storm drain outlets entering from the west along its course of the pond. The second document presented was City Engineer Alan Danforth's hydraulic modeling exhibit made from our as-built drawing. The engineers said that the exhibit showed that the bioswale was improperly designed by John Ravnick and would need to be sized differently to be designed within DOE standards, so it couldn't be a bioswale anyway. But I spotted an error. requiring it to be redone as it was presented to Councilman Brocksmith to show that the bioswale wasn't designed properly. I requested to meet with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Stanforth to discuss the error, but they said no unless I met 6 conditions. I passed. The exhibit's path, with a rise of 14 feet and a run of 1195 feet, does yield an invalid average slope of 1.2%, when a slope of 2 or 3% is required. But the engineers chose a path labeled on sheet 39 as a future drainage swale that was never constructed. The real path is 110 feet less and 12 feet taller than the city's non-existent path. By using the slope formula to divide the difference between the correct elevations of 2 points, the rise of 25 feet, by the correct distance between the points, the run of 1,085 feet, and then multiply by 100, Mr. Ravnick's design slope is 2.4%, within the DOE required 2.3%. So the city engineer's allegation that Mr. Ravnick didn't properly design the bioswale is invalid. In closing, the city's opinions aren't law. Our plat document dedication is law. Public Works needs to legally maintain our bioswale and return it to its as-built condition. Thank you. I just wanted to show you what went wrong. This is sheet 39, and up in the top corner, which they didn't look at on page 39, it says, future drainage swale. This thing that comes up here. The real one goes that way. Our bioswale only goes one path. This was never built. This is now wetland. This is lot 79 of Woodside a vegetation strip, and then lot 80. And fun drawing he got to make through a computer. And this is sheet 4 of our as-built drawing, and then they put things on top. Over here, it came out with a 1.2%. This is our bioswale coming along here. It stops here at lot 32. And the one that went into the woodlands is up over here. It's no good.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else who would like to provide public comment this evening?
I like
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm a first-timer at this process. My name is Mary Jean Rack. I live in Mount Vernon, and I am another advocate, like Mr. Moss spoke earlier. I'm here to talk about the garage requirement for new home construction here in Mount Vernon. I'm a middle school teacher who left my job and moved to Mount Vernon 2 years ago to provide elder care for my 86-year-old mother. I'm the owner of an empty lot on the corner of South 7th and East Washington Streets in the town's uptown Crooked Streets neighborhood, a few blocks away from the hospital. My goal is to build a small, single-story home on the lot that's in character with the neighborhood and provides single-story, live-in-place, age-in-place housing for myself. I currently have a part-time job. I live on very limited means, and as everyone is well aware, post-pandemic building costs and mortgage interest rates are at an all-time high. My goal is to build a modest house on one level that I will live in for the next 20 or more years. It's approximately 1,000 square feet, and the footprint is about 25 by 48 feet. I've run into a current zoning requirement that prevents me from building this modest home. It's the mandate for a 2-car garage with the 2 additional off-street parking sites. Since it is a corner lot, I have a 20-foot setback on 3 of the 4 sides. Similar to geometry spoken of earlier, given these setbacks and my need to have a single-story home, there is room for only a 1-car garage, but not a 2-car garage on this lot. This requirement I find is both cost prohibitive and doesn't align with the character of the neighborhood. I took a walk around my new neighborhood, the one I'd like to be living in. The house next door, it's an old one. The house next door was built in 1900. There are approximately in a 2-block radius, there are about 44 homes. And on these single lots, only 1% have a 2-car garage. 53% have a 1-car garage or carport, and 36% have no off-street parking at all. That is the character of this old neighborhood. So my understanding is that the city of Mount Vernon and the state of Washington is aware of severe affordable housing shortage, and it has a goal to increase the housing density in town. So my request would be to increase the density and the infill lots in these established neighborhoods by allowing me to build a small home that I can afford to build and live in as an age-in-place home. I respectfully submit to the council and its members that we be allowed either to have no garage mandates according to the new state law, or at a minimum to allow variances in cases like my lot, my situation, that allows a home to be built with a 1-car garage in the R1 zoning areas that fit in with the character of neighborhoods and are affordable for someone such as myself of limited means. I thank you for your time this evening and would welcome any additional comments or conversations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Other comments for council tonight? Community comments? All right, we will move on to item 4 on the agenda. It's the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, and claims. Council, would you like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember Hudson. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Consent agenda passes, and we are on to reports. Council held its Public Safety Committee last week. Councilmember Melissa Beaton chairs that committee and will give us her report tonight. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting last Wednesday evening to discuss a single item, and that is potentially a contract extension for KBA management. KBA is the city's construction management vendor, and they are requesting an extension and an increase to their contract. And this is in regards to the remodel of fire stations 3 and 2. The city does not have the internal expertise nor capacity to manage the massive renovations of Fire Station 2 and 3, and so we contracted with KBA. Since commencement of the contract, there have been significant challenges that have extended both project timelines and increased costs. I was just making sure mine's on. All looks good. Original estimates planned for 518 calendar days of work. That has now expanded to 817 total days due to unforeseen complexities. Fire Station 3 was completed in 417 days, causing delays to Fire Station 2, which now has a 400-day timeline. The request is for a maximum contract value of $960,817, an increase of $349,898 from the current contract. What is driving the increased costs? Nearly 60% of the increase is in construction duration. Professional labor rates and material costs have increased significantly post-COVID, contributing to a substantial rise in project expenses. There were extensive unknowns, mostly in Fire Station 3, that created a high number of change orders to Fire Station 3 and the scope of Fire Station 2. Fire Station 3, when they started, the contractors started taking down the walls. This is just one quick one. The rafters were, the roof was like this. Well, the rafters were at any given time at least this far from connection to the roof. It was, I'll just say that the contractor is no longer in business. So it was significant. After a detailed analysis in the critical nature of the fire department's facilities to city operations, approval of this supplemental request will ensure that renovations and additions at Fire Station 2 are completed to the highest standards while accommodating the unforeseen complexities encountered during both remodels. From there, we went on quickly to the good of the order, and Finance Director Doug Valesky passed on that the TIFIA loan has approved and closed. The TIFIA loan is a federal transportation funding tool that provides the city with $26.8 million for the Mount Vernon Library Commons project at a rate of half the prime rate. Over the term of the loan, the city will save about 15 million local taxpayer dollars compared to the traditional funding tools that would otherwise be used. The TIFIA loan, along with several other grants and funding sources, have allowed the city of Mount Vernon to fully fund our $55 million community development project without a single increase in taxes to our property owners. This is thanks in part to the bipartisan Build Back Better federal infrastructure law. U.S. DOT recently announced that this closing represents the first ever transit-oriented development TIFIA award to us, the citizens and visitors of the city of Mount Vernon. The Public Safety Committee adjourned at 6:35 p.m.
Thanks, Melissa. So earlier this evening, the Public Works and Library Committee also met, and that committee was chaired by Councilmember Beaton tonight, while Councilmember Molinar is away. I'm guessing you have a report as well for that.
I certainly do.
Thank you for
Mayor.
covering that.
You bet. We had a great conversation this evening that was solely the discussion is the Riverside Drive update. So Riverside Drive is going to be remodeled and reconstructed, and so we're doing the north section, and then you have College Way in the south section. So Diane Sheasley from Tran Tech provided a comprehensive project overview that included the following deliberate planning factors. It includes Washington state law, WashDOT design standards. We have design standards that we have to comply to as well. Mount Vernon, our comp plan, the transportation element of it, our 6-year transportation improvement plan, and resident and business owners. There were an open house with comments and concerns. She also provided the grant conditions and the requirements. And finally, Diane and her team of subject matter experts responded to a myriad of our questions and had a great dialogue about the future of bike paths within the city and how that's going to play out. And we've got our comp plan that we're really kicking into high gear next year, and so that will be, more of that will come through that process. And with that, we adjourned at 6:57.
Thank you very much. All right, item 5B tonight is council member comments. Are there any council member comments this evening? Yes, Councilmember Trisato.
I would just like to say, I really was excited about the Cinco de Mayo parade that the city had on Sunday. And just thank you, Mayor, for being part of that and joining with us. It was just great to see some of the reports from the news that reported on that, and just seeing some of the reaction of the community, especially some of the young people. It was great to see that emotion that was there that day, how proud they were of Mount Vernon, how proud they were of Mexican culture, and so it was a great day in the city of Mount Vernon.
Despite the rain.
Despite the rain.
It was awesome. Yeah, thank you. Other council member comments?
I'd just like to share my appreciation with the people who spoke about the garage requirements today. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to that. I'd like for the rest of the council to maybe get prepared for another emergency ordinance at some point.
Standing by to dig in. All right. All right, item 5C is mayor's report, and I'll begin the report tonight with the announcement that Sela Police Chief Dan Chrisman has accepted the city's offer to be the next police chief for the city of Mount Vernon. Chief Chrisman has a sterling reputation in the law enforcement community, and really of equal importance, at least to me, is his great rapport with his own community and the communities that that he has served in. Chief Crispin clearly invests in the community in which he serves, and he said he looks forward to earning the trust and developing relationship with the residents here in Mount Vernon. He's hoping to begin work here in early June, and I'm sure that our irreplaceable Chief Kamek is looking forward to his long-delayed retirement plans at that time. So we thank Chief Kamek for staying on a little bit longer here for us. So as Councilmember Tercero said, this past Sunday, several hundred people, I heard over 1,000, braved the pouring rain to celebrate the city's first Cinco de Mayo parade. There were about 50 parade entries, which included folklorico dancers that were seen here. There were dancing horses. And there were some dancing council members, Reyes and Tercero, who actually braved the rain in the back of that truck throughout the whole parade. That was awesome. This was an outstanding community celebration. I agree with you, and can't wait to do it all again next year in the warm sunshine. Wanted to invite everyone to Mayor's Coffee this Friday, May 10th, at the Skagit PUD on Freeway Drive. We've been having some great conversations and great turnouts at the past few Mayor's Coffee events, and I'm looking forward to more of that this week. So please mark your calendars for 10 a.m. this Friday. And finally, for our Library Commons update, we're going to go to a 3-minute video, hopefully, if it works out, a 3-minute video where Library Director Isaac Huffman, Mount Vernon Library Commons Project Administrator Jill Boudreau, it's a unique title now for her, update us on the project and also remind us why we started this adventure in the first place. So.
Hello and welcome to another Mount Vernon Library Commons update. I'm Isaac and I'm here with Jill. And Jill, what's your official title now?
My title is Project Administrator for the Mount Vernon Library Commons.
And we're here today to talk about the many hopes and dreams of this structure and the many goals we're accomplishing for the city.
We were able to combine so many public uses into the structures. What means the most to me is that it's a place of learning, and anyone can walk in to the structure and learn about something. And I think that's a community value, and it's been really shown that communities that learn and keep moving forward are resilient, and they create an economy for the future.
And there might be another laptop that needs to be muted, or
I think it's all or nothing.
Jill, what's your official title now?
My title is Project Administrator for the Mount Vernon. Into the structures. What means the most to me is that it's a place of learning, and anyone can walk in to the structure and learn about something. And I think that's a value, and it's been really shown that communities that learn and keep moving forward are resilient, and they create an economy for the future. We have a $53 million project, so that means that there's many workers making good money on the project. There's materials that are purchased for this and sales tax generated, and so that's really great for building and construction. But when it's open, we're going to have so many people coming to Mount Vernon, using the library, the community center space, the commercial kitchen, and parking. And so we're really going to realize the economic benefit when we open the project in early August.
Yes, August. I'm very excited to say that the building will open sometime in August.
Yes.
One of the great things about this building is it changes the entrance into the city.
It's a very prominent location coming into Mount Vernon. There's outdoor space that people can enjoy that overlooks the entrance to the city. We're going to have street trees. There's signage and beautiful architectural design that really welcome people in. And I think people will wonder, ooh, what is that building? And they'll see Commons on it. And I hope that they stop in and enjoy the building. I'm so proud that our community embraced the environmental architecture that we have. It's one of the first passive house buildings in the state of Washington that was publicly bid. People know that the concrete has global warming potential reduction worked into the concrete. Our solar array is amazing, and it powers about 22% of the building. We're going to have QR codes where people can walk through the building itself, almost like a building tour. They can scan the code and learn about that particular feature and why the city chose, and the designers, really, HKP architects, chose to incorporate that into the design and the benefit to them as a community member from what we did.
This building has a ton of design features. What
Yes.
is one of your favorite design features of the building?
Oh my gosh. There will be large glass panels on 2 different sections of the building, and we have chosen the subtle design features of agriculture. And so on the glass panels, you're going to see wheat fields as a design feature. And then on the corner with the glass by the red apple, they're going to be blueberry bushes. And I just think featuring some of the things that we grow here in Skagit County is just an awesome design feature that I think people will appreciate.
Fantastic. Isaac and TV10, great job on that. I'm just finishing up a note here to never play a video again during the mayor's report when we're running a Zoom. Awesome. But you heard that we're hoping to have this facility open to the public in August, which is very exciting. And that is your mayor's report for May 8th, 2024. Next up, I will ask council for any committee agenda requests that you might have. Yes, Councilmember Beaton.
I do. Councilmember Vanderstoep actually just spoke to it, but we have on an emergency basis, we're getting ready to pass this ADU piece of our housing. I would like to see us thoughtfully get out of the way and come up with something where we have, just as our speakers spoke tonight, where there are some lots where if it's a single garage or no garage, we need to start taking a look at that. So I'd like to add that. We did, this whole ADU thing fairly quickly, and I'd like to see us take a look at this fairly quickly.
Awesome. Great news. Staff is already getting a running start on that.
Excellent.
Yes. Other council member agenda requests for committee. Yes.
Can I expand on that a little bit? I just want to make sure that we have the consensus of the council as we develop the development services agenda for the next month and 2 months, that we will be taking a look at Senate Bill 6015, which one of the speakers spoke to earlier, and also the parking minimum requirements for the city. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. It's a good thing to spend time on in our Development Services Committee.
Sound
Absolutely.
good?
Thank you.
Looking forward to that discussion. Any other committee agenda requests? All right. Item 6 is new business, and under new business, item A is the legislative overview from our 40th District State Legislature. And here to introduce this item is Special Projects Manager Steve Sexton. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. So yeah, this is a legislative update of the 2024 session earlier this year. And while your agenda does say that Senator Lovelet would be here as well, she was unable to make it. But with that, I am very happy to introduce our State Representative, Alex Rammel, who's here to give you an update this evening. And Alex, it's all yours. No videos.
No videos, and good to see you in the new role.
Welcome, Representative.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come and join you tonight. Again, my name's Alex Rammel. I'm State Representative for the 40th District. And each year after legislative session, I try and make the rounds and come and say hi. And first thing I'll just observe is that each time I do that, I come here and I listen to the open public comment period. And I think every single time I've listened to that period, I've walked away knowing more about the community. It's a real valuable resource you have in public input. I guess my intention today is to give you a quick summary of some of the things I think are a highlight, things that we've talked about before, I've heard from folks on the council are important priorities. And then I'll sort of walk through the things that I know about, and then happy to take questions for as long as the mayor's willing to indulge the time. The first thing I always try and emphasize in these discussions is that in the 40th District, and really in the northwest corner of Washington, we've got a legislative team that tries to work together to represent the community. Legislating, as city council members know, is a team sport. It takes a bunch of us working together. We don't need to elbow each other out of the way to take credit for things. We can get much more done working together. So in the 40th District, which is about half of Mount Vernon, Representative Lakanoff and Senator Lovelet and I coordinate on our offices. So if you need services, constituent services, or you want to talk about things, calling any one of us, we'll end up getting you to the right one of us to talk to. You don't have to sort of spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. Just reach out and we'll follow up. And our teams know that that's a priority for us. And then speaking sort of about the larger northwest corner, we really do try and coordinate to cover as many bases as we can. There's a lot of things to work on. So, for example, what that means is that on the House side, those of us on the Democratic side work together to try and make sure we're spread out to cover all of the budget committees. So I serve on the Finance Committee, I serve on the Transportation Committee along with Representative Paul. Clyde Shavers, the other representative from the 10th, is on the Capital Budget Committee, and Deborah Lekanoff is on the Appropriations Committee. So no matter which budget is in play or in discussion, we've got somebody from this community who's there in the room looking out for the interests of the northwest corner of the state. And that plays out in bipartisan ways as well. One thing I try to bring up as frequently as I can is that Washington State is not Washington, D.C., and in Olympia, most of the bills that we pass are bipartisan. Most of the bills that we pass are overwhelmingly bipartisan. That's not what the news covers, because those aren't the fun and interesting stories. Everybody agreed and solved a problem. That's a short story and doesn't get you very far. But most of what we do is collaborative and bipartisan, and I really do try to emphasize that. And here in Skagit County, a couple of really good examples for that. We heard from Skagit County Commission at the beginning of the session, top priority is getting the money to finish the Crisis Stabilization Center in Cedar-Woolley. And you all know that that's a priority that's not just for the Skagit County government or for Cedar-Woolley. That came out of the North Star process. It's a community priority. We heard that loud and clear. So it's in the 39th district. Representative Carolyn Eslick put into the capital budget and said, hey, will you help us get the funds to complete this project? I put that in as my top priority as well, even though it's not my district and it's a Republican priority. But we're working together, and as a result, we were successful in getting those funds through the capital budget. And I just read it in the paper this morning that Skagit County's got the bids on that, and we're going to be able to get those 48 crisis stabilization beds built in the near future. Similarly, rural sales tax. Allowing more flexible uses of an economic development pot of funds was a priority that we heard. Again, came out of the North Star process. Basically, we want to be able to use those funds for workforce housing. It's great to do economic development, but one of the biggest challenges employers are facing right now is there's not enough housing, not enough places for their workers to live. And we want to give the county government flexibility to spend that money and help solve that problem in targeted and smart ways. Again, worked collaboratively to get that done. Ultimately, that was Sam Lowe's bill, Republican from the 39th. I was the first co-sponsor on that bill, working together to get the priority done for the community. I'll address a few other things because housing is, it's one of the top things our shared constituents are bringing to us. So I'll just talk about a couple of other things in that category. This was a short session, so we spent, so every other year we write a biennial budget, and then on the off years, the short sessions like this year, we amend that biennial budget. Sometimes the economy's improved and we have more things that we can do, and sometimes the economy isn't as good and we have to find ways to trim or cut back. One of the priorities we had this year in the capital budget was making sure that we increased funding for the Housing Trust Fund, which is the pot of money that we use to be able to support all of our nonprofit partners and builders in creating subsidized supportive housing, low-income housing, et cetera. Last year, when I was here, I told you we put about $400 million into the Housing Trust Fund in that biennial budget. It's the most we've ever put. This year, we came back and in that short year put more than $100 million more into it. It is a top priority for the legislature. We know we have more work to do to build market rate housing, and I absolutely commend the work that you all are in the middle of doing on ADUs, and excited to hear more on garages, and missing middle housing will be part of that puzzle, and lots more to do there. We got to build more market rate housing, different forms. That's going to be important. There are going to be folks for whom market rate housing won't be the solution, whether that's seniors or folks with development disabilities, folks in recovery or facing behavioral health challenges. We got to make sure that we've got housing solutions for those folks. The Housing Trust Fund is a big part of that, and that's the investments that we're making. I will mention one thing that I think we have to come back and tackle next year. You all have heard me talk about this before, and so is everybody in Olympia, and we're not going to stop talking about it till we get it done, which is rent stabilization. Building more housing, whether it's market rate or that we talked about, or the supportive housing that we talked about, that is a long-term plan. If we do everything right, we can start to bring down costs of housing for folks in 5 years, 10 years. We'll be making enough progress that it will start to make a difference if we do that all right. In the meantime, folks who are renting in our communities are facing steep escalations in costs. And that trend, unfortunately, is not slowing down. I've talked to too many people whose rent has gone up hundreds of dollars, in some cases more than $500 a month. That would put me out of I would lose my housing if my housing costs went up by that much. I don't know about all of you. I think it's fair for landlords to be able to raise the rent to keep up with their costs. There ought to be reasonable restrictions on that. I know what my housing, as somebody who owns my home, I know what my housing costs are going to be next year. I think tenants in Washington State deserve that same stability. And whether those are folks renting apartments or renting part of a duplex, or folks who are renting the home that they put their manufactured housing on, renting the land that they put their manufactured housing on, those folks deserve that same stability. We did not get that bill passed this year. I'm committed to all of you that we're going to come back and we're going to keep working on that until we're able to get that done. Touch on just two more topics briefly and then turn over to your questions. You all know, I think, that I'm passionate about confronting the climate crisis, and when I did this meeting earlier this week up in the city of Bellingham, I shared that I've been working on climate change issues for most of 20 years, my whole professional career. I've never felt more hopeful and excited about our ability to get things done and transition to a clean energy economy than I feel right now. And a large part of that is because Washington has passed a series of important economy-wide policies that are going to push us in the right direction. And one of those, really at the center of it, is the Climate Commitment Act, which we passed in 2021, really went into effect just over a year ago now. And what that is allowing us to do is to make sure that in addition to bringing down the cap on climate pollution and making polluters pay, we're able to reinvest that money to making sure that that transition is characterized by justice. So just highlighting for you a couple of the things that we've been able to do with that. The list is long, and this is by no means comprehensive, but just start off with one of the first things we were able to invest in is the Mount Vernon Library Commons project. And through some innovative work, we're going to see that project be, as I understand it, the largest EV charging station on the West Coast, at least for the time being. And that's enabled through the Climate Commitment Act. Similarly, all of the work that we're doing to stabilize Washington State's ferry system. If you're in the western part of my district, you'd want to talk to me a lot more about the ferry service, but all of the work that we're able to do there is really dependent on Climate Commitment Act funds, which are allowing us to cover the marginal additional cost to make our new ferry system hybrid electric, as well as the retrofit costs for sort of midlife overhauls for some of the sort of midlife vessels. Again, making them hybrid electric, bringing down operating costs, improving air quality, and improving impact on the marine life in the Salish Sea, including the southern resident killer whales. We're also rolling out right now. I'm particularly excited because I'm an energy nerd. I'm really excited about heat pumps. We're rolling out heat pump and electrification program through the Department of Commerce, specifically targeted to make sure that that transition is accessible to folks who are low and moderate income. We put about $80 million into that program, and that's going to be rolling out as grants in the coming months. Now, two more things I'll mention on that. Electric buses for schools. We've got a grant program now. I recall vividly the smell and the sort of sick feeling in my stomach riding on school buses when I was a kid. I know now that that's diesel exhaust, and we're going to be able to transition those school buses in the coming years and help our school districts with the added cost to be able to make that work for those districts. By the way, we're building electric buses up in Whatcom County, so this is a full energy economic transition. And it wasn't on my list to prioritize talking to you about earlier, but based on the discussion, just wanted to highlight for you that Senator Shoemake was effective at getting a small budget proviso in there to support the rollout of electric bikes, which, I live at the bottom of a hill, and I've not been good about riding my bike until I got an e-bike. It really is a solution that makes biking accessible for more people. It's modeled on a successful Colorado program, again, targeted to make those e-bikes accessible to folks who are lower and moderate income. And by the way, there's the intention to create an e-bike lending library so people can try it out and see if it works before making that investment. So I anticipate that's going to be a bigger piece of our transportation infrastructure in the near future, and hope you're thinking that part through as well with everything you're looking at on Riverside Drive. Final thing I'll bring up here is law enforcement. This has been an ongoing topic of conversation that we've had. Just a couple of things to flag. First, last year when we were here, we talked about the regional training center for basic law enforcement. The intention had been, our hope had been, that it would be happening here in Mount Vernon, Skagit Valley Community College. For reasons that I don't fully understand, we were never able to make that deal cement. We still need to have a regional training academy so that folks can sign up to learn to become law enforcement in the northwest corner and not have to move to King County for several months, because you can't make that drive to and from every day. And it's a barrier to being able to hire law enforcement. So we need to have that regional training facility, and my understanding is that it is going to happen. It's going to be in North Snohomish County. So it'll still be a relatively convenient and significant improvement over what folks have right now. Similarly, again, I think it's really important. One of the biggest, most important pieces to me of how we can make sure that we're continuing to improve law enforcement is making sure we're investing in training. So I'm happy to also report that going forward, Washington State is committed to pick up the full tab for training law enforcement for the basic law enforcement training academy. Previously, it had been 75-25 split. We want to help make sure that investment happens, and so that's one piece of that commitment from the state government as your partners. We've got lots of ongoing conversations to have on that. Happy to delve in further if you want. I'll just flag for you that Representative Dave Paul has been hosting a regional meeting of legislators, bipartisan meeting of legislators, and police chiefs and sheriffs from around kind of Skagit Island, a little bit of Snohomish and Whatcom counties. So that we can have longer discussions outside of the fast pace of the legislative session and better understand each other's perspectives and make sure that we're thinking and working together in a thoughtful way. Chief Kamek has been host those meetings and just have them down the hall here, this convenient spot. Thanks for letting us do that. We're going to continue having those meetings and happy to share more on that. With that, I'll pause and happy to answer any questions I can, as long as you want to keep hearing me talk.
All right, questions for Representative Wren?
Just want to say thank you for all the representation you have from us in Olympia. Thank you very much for always answer our questions and be there for us. We really appreciate it here in Mount Vernon, and we are so glad to be part of the district body. What you do there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. I really do consider this partnership, right? State government has to work with our local government partners, and we do better when we're communicating and when we're accessible. So thank you for being the other half of that partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilmember Tercero.
Yeah, just as a long-term plan, and I know this would be a huge project, the Riverside Bridge, the downtown Riverside Bridge, is a state highway. And so we're very glad to hear that it's going to get painted and it's on the list of state projects that is going to get done here. But thinking about that bridge and how it is dangerous to pedestrians and bike riders, it would seem to me that putting that bridge on a list of potential future projects of either an accompanying dedicated pedestrian bridge that connects West Side with downtown is something that we really need to consider there. And something that was sort of a draw for Mount Vernon as far as something that was a destination, that or sort of was an attraction in and of itself. So I'll just throw that out there.
Sure. Thank you. And I came in at the end of the Riverside discussion, so I didn't get a chance to take a look at the maps there. But
No, that's.
Oh, you're talking about the other end?
No, I'm talking about the bridge downtown.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, because that is a state highway.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm happy to follow up with you and take a look at that more closely, and we can talk about what it takes to get something into our transportation planning. What I will just highlight again is that pedestrian and bike amenities are eligible uses of the Climate Commitment Act. So it's hard to get gas tax money for stuff. That's all spent 16 years before it comes in. But the Climate Commitment Act gives us flexibility around stuff like that. So happy to take a look at that.
Other council member comments or questions? Representative Remmel, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you. And sorry Liz Senator Lovelet wasn't able to make it. She sends her best. And like I said, we really are a team. You probably get a little bit quicker presentation if it's only one of us anyway. Thank you for the opportunity. And really, please do reach out to me or to any of us anytime. We see this collaboration and partnership is essential for us to be able to do our job well. So thanks for being part of the team with us.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alex.
Council item B tonight is an open record public hearing and a request for approval of ordinance 3892, which adopts interim accessory dwelling unit regulations. And your Development Services Director, Stacy Pratchner, will present this item tonight. Stacy.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. So this evening is the public hearing for consideration of draft ordinance 3892 provided in your packet ahead of this meeting, which is an updated version of ordinance 3887, and that ordinance was adopted by the City Council on March 13th of this year. Ordinance 3887 is the result of Council's declaration of a housing emergency in Mount Vernon, and pursuant to RCW 3670A220, that familiar GMA, Council is required to hold a public hearing within 60 days of enactment of the interim accessory dwelling unit regulations. We've also been referring to this as the emergency ordinance. So this evening is that 60-day hearing. Staff recommends that Council hold the hearing, accept public testimony, at its pleasure deliberate on the updates, and then, if it's their pleasure, approve and authorize the department to begin the work plan for the regulations. So in other words, that work plan is what authorizes us to begin the legislative process to adopt permanent regulations. So environmental and impact study through SEPA, review by the Planning Commission and the public, and then ultimately a final version coming back to City Council for that permanent adoption. So the council will probably recall that the interim regulations adopt the bulk of text that's contained within House Bill 1337. This is one of the bills meant to address that missing middle housing referenced by our representative, those housing types, the missing middle housing types in jurisdictions throughout Washington state. So you'll see that this evening, subsequent to the city's adoption of the interim regulations on March 13th, there are some further updates for your consideration as well. The purpose of these further updates, or red lines, is to further implement the council's guidance that we ensure that additional parking requirements for an already existing but non-conforming home on a site, that additional parking is not triggered for that home when the homeowner applies for an ADU on their property. In other words, if someone applies for an ADU and they have non-conforming, maybe not sufficient parking for the existing home, we're not worried about that existing home. The ADU legislation is focused on that parking spot for the ADU. So in summary, in order to implement that guidance, updates are proposed to sections of the Mount Vernon Municipal Code 17-102-020. That's the city's non-conforming regulations chapter. And that proposal would add a new section to subsection D that an existing home with non-conforming parking won't be required to come into conformance prior to issuance of a permit for an accessory dwelling unit. And then updates are also proposed to Chapter 1773, so the actual ADU chapter, to remove some redundant language about units needing to meet the requirements of code. The code is a extensive statute that already has existing regulations when anyone comes in for a development permit. And then the last red line is an amendment that clarifies that an ADU permit will not expire if for some reason the primary residence loses a parking space. Maybe someone else builds something in its place, or if there's a garden put there or something like that. That won't compromise the ADU permit, the allowance for that. So as always, I appreciate your time in me explaining the ordinance, and I'd be happy, and I'm sure Kevin, our attorney, would be happy to answer any questions before council opens the public hearing and accepts testimony. Thank you.
Great summary, Stacy. Any questions for Stacy before we open up the public hearing? Okay. With that, we will open up the open record public hearing for the city's proposed ordinance 3892. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please step forward, and I think we have your name and city of residence on record.
Hello again, Mayor. Hello again, Council. I applaud you for making this emergency ordinance and getting to this point. I am commenting mainly because the state set a maximum amount of parking that could go with an ADU and not a minimum. I came here in a car. Almost everybody in the room came here in a car. Most of the people who will reach out to you drive cars, but I don't think, as a middle-aged man, I really understand what the next generation is going to look like when they are riding e-bikes, when they are moving close to downtown to work at our large employers, the county, the school district. The people who move here in the future are not your voters yet. They are not your constituents yet, but I urge you to think about them when you set parking minimums for accessory dwellings. People who want to walk or want to bike or e-bike, as Representative Bramall spoke of, to work, they don't need a parking spot. There may be more housing available if, over the year-long process that you're going to embark on here, you look at possibly finding ways for some ADUs not to come with a parking space at all. That's not going to work if you're 5 miles from downtown. I recognize that. But it could work in some of our more traditional neighborhoods closer to downtown and closer to jobs that we're having trouble finding a workforce for. So again, I'm so glad that you are going to vote for the amendment tonight, that you already voted for the emergency ordinance, but over the next 4 to 10 months, I guess, please consider the possibility that some ADUs do not need a parking space at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Other comments on this topic? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask council if they would like a motion to approve and accept this year's proposed ordinance 3892.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Tercero and a second by Councilmember Vanderstoop. Any discussion on this? Comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right. The ordinance passes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Next step, parking.
Thanks for your work on this, Stacy, and your staff. Item 6C tonight is the approval of a fiber services agreement with Astound Business Solutions, and IT Director Mary Thomas has this item tonight. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mayor. Hello, Council. Tonight, I'm in front of you for a few things. We're going to start with the Astound Business Solutions Fiber Services Agreement. So we aren't actually the ones that take fiber to the endpoint. We have service providers who do, and this is a fiber service agreement to have Astound Business Solutions as a choice for our residents and businesses to use for fiber services here in the city of Mount Vernon, utilizing our fiber backbone. We would just like to make a motion to approve the mayor to sign the agreement with Astound Business Solutions, if you have no questions.
Questions for Mary?
Yes.
How many other providers do we work with?
We have NPI, we have CSS, we have Pogo Zone, and we have a couple of different dark fiber providers like Noanet and that provide only dark fiber services, but this is for lit services. So we have 3 others.
Other questions? About a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Andrew, second by Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion passes. The agreement is approved. Item 6D, approval of an agreement with Skagit County
So
for
this-
technology services.
Yes, this interlocal agreement with Skagit County is for the public safety system. So our police officers and firefighters, our police officers have Spillman, which is a service application that they use that provides their public safety services. And Skagit County is who provides that. And this is the agreement that makes that happen. So what it is we pay them annually a cost. That cost is assessed by Skagit County, and all of that is broken down here in the agreement. It also covers our requirements for CJIS, which is the police chief's signature for the control of information and those things in the agreement as well. If we can, we're just requesting that a motion be made to approve the interlocal agreement with Skagit County for their public safety system.
Council, questions on the Skagit County agreement?
I have just a quick question. Forgive me, but I couldn't find the figure, the amount of the contract.
It's paid by the police department, and it's variable because it's based upon number of users. It's based on several different categories of information. The police chief could probably talk a little bit more about how that's broken down and how they pay it, but they work with the county as to what it is on a
So there's-
quarterly basis.
There's no not to exceed X amount of dollars? From what I
Not
can.
in the agreement,
Okay,
no.
okay.
And I don't know if this is a question for her, for us here, is there a way to build in it should not exceed? a certain amount? Is that even proper to?
I'm gonna leave that to Kevin and, yeah.
I will defer to the public safety officer. Sure, you could put a cap on it, but the nature of this system is it's integral to your public safety officers, and it's dependent upon the number of users and the type of use that will slide the scale. And I think intentionally we're not putting a cap on that because this is an essential data sharing
Right.
service for your officers to understand what is going on in real time in emergency situations. So certainly we can terminate the agreement within 30 days' notice if we don't like it, but I highly doubt operationally that will happen.
Yeah.
Everybody uses this in the county, including perhaps the tribes at this point.
Yes, they do. So this also is, the Spillman system is used countywide. And it's not just, this is for the police department, but the fire department has their own agreement. So, but this is specific to public safety for the police department because of certain types of data and the data sharing agreements and things that need to be met by criminal justice information systems.
Just, again, PD has a separate way that their billing is associated. One, as Mary had mentioned, it is associated with the number of officers, the numbers of licenses they have for that login to the system. But PD also uses their system as a records management system. So all of their data gets stored within that. So again, when we talk about CAP, it's very difficult to calculate that because those records are constantly being generated, used, accessed along those ways, improvements of that. From the fire side, we use the Spillman system mainly as a dispatching center. Our factors are costed out by the number of calls we have, and then there's another associated percentage for assessed valuation that's also used within the PD as well. So there's many factors that go into that costing mechanism, but I think the main answer to answer your question goes back to that system is a live, always evolving, always growing system by the number of records that are going into it and the maintenance that's required to maintain that. So that makes that very difficult.
Good questions. Did they get answered for
Oh, yeah,
you?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, I guess my follow-up question would be, in our budget process, do we know how we compare to other comparable cities or municipalities that use this system, how we track as far as the cost to our city? How is that compared to what other cities of our similar size spend on this?
I would hazard a guess that every jurisdiction using the county Spillman system is agreeing to the same terms.
Yes.
Now, Mount Vernon is the largest municipality and by extension has the largest police force. But from my knowledge of being the city attorney and prosecutor over 22 years, I can tell you that Burlington and Cedar-Woolley and Anacortes use the system the same way we do in terms of data preservation, data recording, and use. So scalably, we'll probably be larger than the rest because we're bigger than the rest, but I think we're all using it and being charged the same.
And it also ties into the evidentiary system, their evidence system and all of that. It's a full system. It does many things needed for the police service as well as the fire service. And that's being brought to us by Skagit County.
Okay. Council on motion?
I'll move to approve the interlocal agreement with Skagit County for the public safety system.
Second. Motion by Mary and a second by Councilmember Beaton, narrowly. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. Agreements approved. 6E is an approval of another agreement with Skagit County.
Yes,
Mary's
and
got
this one is actually for, it's an interlocal agreement with Skagit County for the laser fiche services for the municipal court. So our superior and our municipal court are tied together for a lot of different things. And the judges that come over to us from the county are using this same system at the county level. And what this does is it allows us to put all of the court documents together so that when the judge is sitting there, he can see the entire case docket. He can see all of it. The courts put forward a grant to help pay for the initial process of this. And what we'll do is we will be paying for the 3 licenses annually for our 3 municipal court members and whatever cost it is of our document process. And that will change based on that same thing that we just talked about. Like it may go up over the year as the amount of electronic records we have goes up. So, but that will be a budgeted item. It will be added in the budget process and you'll see all of that.
Questions for Mary on this one? Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Andrew and a second by Yidis. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And this agreement is approved. Item 6F is an agreement with Wilson Engineering. And Mary, do you have this one as well?
I don't. This is not me.
Oh,
Wilson
how about
Engineering
that?
is not me.
Is Chris here?
He's up there.
Ah.
There he is.
I think it's Chris.
And there we go. Hello, good evening from the nation's capital. Good evening, council and mayor. City staff recommends city council authorize the mayor to amend the agreement with Wilson Engineering not to exceed the amount of $94,023 for a contract grand total of $496. As council is aware, the Public Works Department recently received a Public Works Trust Fund loan for this project in the amount of $750,000. Again, this keeps us below that particular dollar amount. And what city staff is recommending is that you authorize the mayor to amend the agreement with Wilson Engineering not to exceed that $94,023 amount for a grand total of $693 and $693 or $1,000 and 496. Yeah, you guys got it. 693, 496. Thank you so much.
It's 11:20 p.m. where Chris is. Chris has spent an entire day on Zoom on the East Coast with us, interviewing folks and at committee, and we appreciate you being here, Chris, to present this. Questions for Chris? Should we throw in some curveballs?
No
Let's not.
questions. I'll make a motion, council authorize the mayor to amend the agreement with Wilson Engineering.
I'll second that.
Motion by Melissa, second by Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And the motion passes. The agreement is approved, and Director Phillips can go to sleep.
Yes, good for him.
Night, Chris.
Good night, Chris. Thank you.
Good night,
Item
Chris.
6G. Oh, yeah, that's right. You've got another one.
Yeah.
Item 6G is the approval of an amended agreement with KBA Incorporated for contract management services related to fire station renovations. Here's Chief Bryce to introduce it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you tonight is to amend the contract with KBA. We initially began the contract with KBA back in February of '22 for the construction management of fire stations 2 and 3. During that process, Fire Station 3 took a lot longer than projected. There was a lot of issues associated with that, including things like underground electrical that had to be rerouted, truss systems that had to be redesigned and added to, structural issues associated with some floor cracks that we needed to make sure were there, sewer pipes that had swales in them that needed to be realigned and back straightened out so they flow correctly, walls that were offset by up to 2 inches of bearing walls. Those are just a few of the items there. That created a lot of additional work and added more to the point of this extension, the time associated with that for the completion of both of these projects. What this agreement will do is extend the contract through the end of '24 so that KBA can further manage the construction and completion of Fire Station 2. I urge you to agree to this contract and authorize the mayor to extend it so we can complete our project in a timely fashion.
Thanks,
with
Chief.
that, helping for questions.
And thanks for the extensive report on this at committee last week. Council, any questions for Chief Bryce? Comments?
We have had a lot of discussion on it, and there's still more work to do, but we know KBA's the group that's going to help us finish the project. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the amendment to Agreement 4198 with KBA.
Second.
Motion by Richard, a second by Melissa. Discussion? Yes, sir.
And I don't know if this is a point of order, or, is it ever appropriate to invite the consulting company like KBA to be present so we could ask them questions as well?
We have done that in the past, yeah.
And I'm not saying for the specific, but I would have liked to have asked them questions.
Yeah.
I think the fire chief enjoyed our discussion.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Other questions, comments? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no.
Thank you.
This passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, now Director Phillips. 6H is a bid award and approval of an agreement with Granite Construction Company for the city's 2024 street improvements project.
I drank a Mountain Dew in between events, so I got you ready now.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. This is a subject for the 2024 Street Improvement Program. Again, staff recommends a motion be made by Council to award the 2024 Street Improvement Project to Granite Construction Company for the bid amount of $1,005,597. Yes, Mount Vernon, I can read. The project itself consists of three areas: South 15th Street, Broadway to Division, Martin Road. We've got an area from College Way to McLaughlin Road. And then on Kincaid, just think everything around the Mount Vernon Library Commons project. Makes sense that if we're putting $58 million into the building, the least we can do is go ahead and make the streets and the sidewalks associated with it, again, vehicle friendly, bike friendly, as well as pedestrian friendly. City received three bids on the 16th of April, ranging in price from the lowest bid or lowest responsive by Granite Construction to a high of $1,239,862.20. The bid provided by Granite was found to be responsive and prepared in accordance with the contract documents. Staff recommends City Council award the contract bid for the 2024 street improvement project to Granite Construction in the amount of $1,005,597. And if you will notice, the bid came in approximately $355,000 less than what we had estimated. Pending your questions.
Chris, questions about the agreement or about the street improvements project?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, this project's funded by our Transportation Benefit District dollars. And for folks out in the community, that is paid for by a 0.2% sales tax that we levy in the city of Mount Vernon. And it's provided us with, I think, 6 years now of consistent street improvements, maintaining the quality of the roads and associated sidewalks. So fantastic project. Thanks for bringing it in under budget. And unless there's somebody else who wants to speak, I'd certainly make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Motion by Richard and a second by DeVore. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agreement, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Chris. Good night, sir. And that is the end of our new business on the agenda tonight. For item 7, I will direct the city attorney, Kevin Rogerson, to call the mayor and city council into executive session.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of City Council. I would invite the City Council and the Mayor and related staff to enter into an executive session on the grounds of discussion with legal counsel, agency enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party, when public knowledge regarding such discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subsection 1I, and moreover, to discuss issues related to collective bargaining sessions, including contract negotiations, grievance meetings, and discussions relating to the interpretation or application of a labor agreement or planning or adopting the strategy or position related to collective bargaining which is wholly exempt from the Open Public Meetings Act pursuant to RCW 4230-140 subsection 4. Estimated time, 10 minutes with no final action after.
5-minute bathroom break before.
And with that, we will adjourn the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for Wednesday, May 8th, 2024 at 8:28 PM. Bathroom break.
Okay.